Welcome into the Toronto Sports Rush right here on the Bet Rivers Network. It's the post-game Toronto Maple Leafs update here. The Leafs playing tonight against the Buffalo Sabres, and once again, it did not go well as the Sabres, with a hat trick from Rasmus Dalene, a 5-point night by Dalene, the Sabres go on to a 7-4 victory over the Leafs. And to talk about it, joining me now, Pierre McGuire, EJ Raddick here. Pierre, we started this homestand about 10 days ago. The Leafs had been playing pretty good hockey. They had a 5-game homestand. It was going to be rough. Minnesota, Detroit, Vegas, Marner coming back, Colorado, Buffalo. Buffalo has been playing great hockey. We knew it was going to be rough, but they go 0-4-1 on the trip, or excuse me, on the homestand, and now just 1-5-2 in their last 8 games. And just as quickly as they jumped back into the race, they are falling out of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of reason to be discouraged if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, player, or coach. I think the biggest thing is you come on this homestand, you go 0-4-1. You know, you really think about it, you got 1 win in your last 8. And to me, the biggest thing is they couldn't match speed with a young team from Buffalo. You could see in the second period, the period of the long change, that game wasn't even close. The shots were 17-3 in favor of Buffalo. And Buffalo was all over on the forecheck. They were omnipresent. They were getting in the net. You just made the great point about Rasmus Dalene, 3 goals, 2 assists. You know, watch Mattias Samuelsson. He was a dominant player. Bowen Byram, their defensemen were running roughshod all over EJ on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto had no answer for it. They could not outskate. They could not outpass. They could not outhit. They could not outsmart the Buffalo Sabres.
You know, Pierre, as I watched the game, the thing that it stood out to me was and it's funny because, if you go back to last year, the shoes probably would have been on the other feet, so to speak. But the Toronto Maple Leafs look like a fragile team, and the Buffalo Sabres look like a really confident team right now. And they've been playing just terrific hockey. They're 19-3-1 now in their last 23 games. That's the best record in the NHL since December the 9th. So the Sabres looked like a confident team. I mean, they were down in the game early. The Leafs had the 1-0 lead, 2-1 lead. They got things tied up at 3-3 when Bobby McMahon scored. It looked like they had some momentum. But the Buffalo Sabres just never really seemed like it bothered them. And the Leafs, anytime things went the other way, it seems like they were thrown back, gave up a goal late in the second, which put Buffalo up 4-3, gave up a goal early in the third, which proved to be the eventual game winner from Tuck. And it just seems like the Leafs are just a very fragile group.
Well, there's no question about it. And there's going to be all kinds of people questioning how they build the team, what kind of defense do they have, why are they so easy to forecheck, are they deep enough down the middle, which they should be. They didn't have Nick Roy for good portions of this game, and you could see they did not have enough down the middle. I'm surprised that the broadcast didn't bring that up more, the one that I watched, because you could see him not playing. That created a problem for Toronto. Again, in the second period, they just couldn't match pace with what Buffalo was doing. Buffalo comes at you with 4 lines, and that 4th line with Kozak, Krebs, and Malenstein, they create havoc. They're no fun to play. Toronto doesn't have anybody that can do that right now. You can see Matthew Knies is not 100%. You can just see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. I heard one of the comments saying he needs to get the Olympic break. He really needs to rest. You can see it. It's very apparent. This is a team that's been decimated by injury. Their best players haven't been able to get over the hump. And for whatever reason, to your point, EJ, there's a crisis of confidence right now. There's no question about it.
Again, to be fair, I mean, no Nylander again tonight out of the lineup. I mean, that hurts to have a guy who could turn a game with 1 shot out of the mix. Tanev's been out most of the year, but I mean, they were counting on Chris Tanev to be a big part of your group from the get-go this year, and he has not played in most of the games. So those are 2 pretty significant losses. That said, a lot of teams have injuries, miss players. They find ways to get things going. And this Leaf team played really well on that stretch when they went out west. They had that run right at the end of December into early January, but it's just all fallen apart on this homestand. And now they've got a couple of games coming up out west to try to get back on track. And, the biggest problem is Buffalo has taken off. I don't see them catching the Buffalo Sabres the way the Sabres are playing. Tampa Bay is at the top of the division. Detroit is playing really well. I mean, Boston's finding a way to get points. I mean, like, there's just too many teams, it looks like, ahead of the Leafs right now. During the broadcast tonight, I think they were doing the math. The Leafs will probably have to win 20 of their last 30 games. I mean, that's a lot to ask for a team that's barely a 500 team all season.
Gord Miller made that point on the TSN broadcast. You're 100% right. The other part of it is they go out to Seattle, a team urgent for points. They go into Vancouver. They have nothing to play for except pride right now. So that's not going to be an easy game for Toronto, because one of the things that will endear them to their fans in this terrible year in Vancouver, beat the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Beat the Leafs.
Yeah. And then you go into Calgary, same kind of deal, beat the Leafs. And then you go into Edmonton at the end of that road trip before the Olympics. And it's going to be a problem. You just know, because if they can't match pace with Buffalo, they're not going to match pace with Edmonton. No way. And I'm blown away by what Lindy Ruff has done with his staff. They should be so patted on the back by the fans in Buffalo, where they rescued this team from to start the year in their first 20 games to where they are now. It's an unbelievable story. They should be so proud of what they're doing right now in Buffalo.
Yeah, listen, Buffalo has the personnel. I mean, especially, Norris is out again, but when he was there, I mean, you have Thompson, Norris, McLeod. You mentioned that fourth line. They create problems for the other team. They got those top four defensemen. Those are that group of four defensemen, Dalene, Samuelson, Byram, and Power. You can put them up against any four defensemen in the league, and they can compete to be the very best group of four in the league. So Buffalo has always had the personnel. They finally got it together. Now, Luukkonen got hurt tonight, but in comes Ellis. And to your point earlier, the Leafs never tested the guy. They never really got any shots on goal. And one thing I want to ask you about, Pierre, too, because it came up during the game tonight as well. No power plays in the game for the Leafs. Now, I'm not saying they should be getting power plays, but like, they have the second fewest power plays drawn in the league this year, behind only Columbus. This is supposed to be a tougher, harder team to play against, and yet they're not drawing any penalties. So that's not great news either.
Brad Treliving's quote when Mitchell Marner went to Vegas is, "We need to change the DNA of the team." The DNA of the team is basically the same as last year without the power play quarterback, Mitchell Marner, and one of the top right wingers in the league in Mitchell Marner. So as much as they wanted to change the DNA, it's pretty much the same. One of the things that's apparent to your point, and I love what you just said, you got to dominate the puck to draw penalties.
Yeah.
They're not dominating.
They don't.
The puck. They do not. They have a hard time retrieving. The defense had a tough time moving the puck, so the puck's along the boards a lot in their own zone. They're an easy team to forecheck. It's not easy to gain access out of the zone because you're always in a scrambled situation. It's not working. It pains me to see it. They're an important franchise in the league, and I will say this right now. I got the Toronto Maple Leafs wrong this year. I thought they were going to be a much better team. I thought they'd be harder to play against. I was expecting Lawton to be a very important player for their team. I thought Stolarz would have a fantastic year this year after the injury in the playoffs last year. He got hurt. Right from the start, this thing was disassembled. I don't know what happened, but remember the quotes from Stolarz, EJ, at the start of the year about the players and not playing this way and not doing that? Something happened here with this group because they're not what they should be.
Yeah, and it started, to your point, early in the season. They had that favorable schedule early in the year with all those home games. And, they did okay, but they left a lot of points on the table. And you knew the schedule was going to get harder as the season went along. And, again, unfortunately for them, it's not 5 years ago when, the bottom four teams in the division were terrible and they were all rebuilding. Those teams are all moved ahead now. As I mentioned, Buffalo, Detroit, Montreal. I mean, they've all moved up the ladder. So it's a much different situation for the Leafs in the Atlantic Division right now. And I mean, the Florida Panthers, with all the injuries they have, they're, still in the mix. And obviously Tampa Bay has played very well. Let me ask you this, Pierre, now, because listen, we don't know how it's going to play out. We thought they were going to be in, then we thought they were going to be out. Then we thought, oh, they're coming on, and now they've slumped, right? So it's hard to say. But put yourself in Brad Treliving's shoes in terms of the trade deadline coming up. I mean, they don't have a lot of assets really to trade to get something. I mean, one of the only things is maybe one of the goalies. And, I don't even know how much on the market. I think the guy you'd probably look to trade either Stolars or Hildeby, and I don't even know what that would bring you in return. What do you do if you're Brad Treliving right now? Because this does not look like a playoff team to me.
No, they're not a playoff team right now. They're not. And Buffalo made sure everybody found that out tonight. I would look at talking to Morgan Riley and ask Morgan what we could do to accommodate him. He'd have some asset value around the league because a veteran player hasn't played in a lot of playoffs and had success. He'd be a highly motivated player you could get. I think if he's playing deeper in your lineup, that's a really good. It's a lot like Seth Jones last
Yeah.
year going to Florida. Seth was struggling. A lot of people wrote Seth off in Chicago. They did. And he had never had any playoff success. He goes to Florida, tons of playoff success to the point where he was actually on Team USA till he got hurt, the
Yeah.
team that's going to go to the Olympics. So I talked to him. I would talk to Jake McCabe. I think Jake has distinguished himself so well in Toronto. He's been a captain of a World Junior gold medal winning team.
Yep.
He's been a leader almost everywhere he's ever been. So I'd want to talk to Jake McCabe about potentially moving on. You can't come back next year with Riley, McCabe, Tanev, and Ekman Larson. It's just too old. It's too old. You're going to have to change the seating arrangement on defense in particular. And that pains me to say that because all those are good people. Every single one of those guys is a good guy, and every single one of them wants to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Well, Pierre, I mean, the thing that I would ask you then next is like, how do you get younger on the blue line when you haven't drafted those guys? I mean, and they're not really available via free agency. I mean, those guys get they get gobbled up by their teams. Look at Buffalo; those guys are all signed. Dalene, Power. I guess Byram is the guy on a shorter term contract, but the way things are going there now, he might consider staying for a much longer period of time. Who knows? But like, it's hard to get those type of guys if you haven't drafted them.
Well, Ben Danford's the one draft pick they do have, and hopefully we'll be able to make progress after the World Junior and come and play for Toronto. They signed a kid out of Union College last year as a free agent, kid named Prokop, who's playing in the American Hockey League right now. But to agree with you, they don't have a lot of resources at that position. So you're either going to have to buy it or you're going to have to trade something substantial in the offseason at the forward position to try to get it. I don't know what they have left that they can honestly do. I mean, you're not trading unless something unbelievable happens. You're not trading Austin Matthews. I mean, I don't think you're trading John Tavares. So then where's your asset value with some of the other guys? Willie Nylander? I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's the one I would say is, I mean, they had Marner leave basically for nothing. I mean, they did get Nick Waugh in that acquisition, and he's a helpful piece, but obviously nowhere near what Mitch Marner is. I mean, would you consider maybe moving on from William Nylander, who is obviously is a very high-end player now? He's been out with some injuries this year, but like, I would think there would still be a lot of teams interested in Nylander. He's young, he scores in big moments.
Oh, yeah, no, he has asset value. He has serious asset value.
Yeah.
You may have to look at that. That might be your option. But again, this is going to be one of those where you got to take your time. You don't rush into it. You made a great point about the goaltending. Hildeby has proven himself to be an NHL competent goaltender. I think Joe Woll is definitely an NHL competent goaltender, and Stolarz has been great when he's been healthy. I know he wasn't good the other night against Vegas. I didn't like the fact they started him against Vegas on Friday night. He hadn't played a game in forever. Let him go get some touches in the American Hockey League. Let him play one game like Montreal did with Sam Montembeault. But don't just throw him in there against Vegas, especially with Marner coming back to town. I didn't like that decision.
Yeah, and another thing I'll ask you quick, Pierre, is like, go back to that Vegas game, and it was something a former player brought up with me today about that night in Toronto. He said, maybe some of those the bottom six kind of guys or back end defensemen to get a little bit harder on Marner in that game because the fans wanted to see. Let's face it. It's when I was in Philadelphia to see the situation there when Gauthier came back this year. It was the second year, and he's been like kind of vilified there in Philly for not wanting to play for the Flyers. He's traded to Anaheim, and I noticed that Hathaway and Konechny, they were taking every chance they could to give Gauthier a shot, and it got the crowd into the game and created a stir. And like in that game with Marner, there was none of that. And I'm not saying you want to go out and run Mitch Marner, but like the fans would have liked to see, I think, the Leafs rough him up a little bit. around the edges, and there was none of that in that game.
You know, it's a fair point. So I just want to bring this up. Austin Matthews is going to the Olympics for the United States. On Sunday, he got torched by Brock Nelson, who had 3 goals.
Yep.
On Friday night, he got torched by Jack Eichel, who ripped that game up, starting with the first goal of the game. And tonight, again, Tage Thompson, for the second time in the last 2 times Toronto and Buffalo have played, Tage Thompson has lit up Austin Matthews. So let's just say they keep it and they play Jack Eichel in the 1 hole, Tage Thompson in the 2 hole, Brock Nelson in the 3 hole. You mean to tell me that Austin Matthews is going to be the 4th center for Team USA? So it's to what you're talking about. I would have thought that Austin would have been ticked off going into tonight's game.
Yeah.
I didn't see that from him. I saw some skill, but I didn't see him getting angry. I just didn't see it.